Hi friends, it's Emily from Life So Savory, and today's project is to continue working on that Christmas dress that I started last week. So I've actually done some work along the way because I realized that it might be more than a project that I can completely show into live shows, because there was actually a lot of details that went into that. So I'm going to show you what I've been working on, and then work on the skirt ruffle. I did go purchase one more yard of fabric, and if you're not sure what I'm talking about, after this is over, I will go ahead and link these two videos together, but you can also scroll back on Life So Savory on either YouTube or Facebook and find last week's show where I was working on this Christmas dress, and it is turning out so cute, but I did need another yard of fabric. So for this size 7 that I'm making my daughter, who is 9, and so I'm lengthening it a little bit, I'm actually using 4 yards of fabric because it's not very wide. So this woven fabric is only 44 inches wide, which is standard for a woven fabric or say a flannel. So just be aware that with all these ruffles and things, you will need more fabric. So either be able to purchase more or buy a lot up front. So I'm using 4 yards of fabric pretty much completely. So that additional yard that I bought, I cut in half with the fabric, and that's going to be the skirt. Then we're going to add the ruffle onto the skirt, and then we're going to work a little bit on the top. So I at least want to show you how I'm ruffling on the sleeve cap, and then I'm going to show you how to use the ruffler on the serger, which is a really fun feature. And then if we can put it all together, we can. If not, you'll be seeing photos soon of this finished product. So all that is what we're going to work on. So let me show you what I've done. I see some of you checking in, Emily and Tiffany and Mary. So glad you are here. So I have prepped some of this and been working on it. So let me just show you. So the ruffle is 4 widths of fabric. So 4 times 44 sewn together into a long strip. The other thing that I did do was I prepped the bottom edge with my serger so that then I can go ahead and easily fold that over to hem after it's ruffled and sewn onto the skirt. So that I've been working on. So a little bit on that. Then let's see. Okay, so remember last week when we cut out the shoulder ruffles? So this one, we sewed it together. I did go ahead and top stitch along that edge to make sure that it lays nicely. And then, okay, so I did one shoulder so I could show you. And as I was gathering it, pulling, sliding, moving those gathers, the edge of the fabric frayed terribly. And I had these long strings, and after I sewed it together, I had to like give it a haircut. So for this one, I'm trying, I don't know if that's going to make it harder to gather, but I did serge the edge there so that hopefully we don't get all those strings when we're gathering. Okay, so there's one shoulder ruffle. And then the skirt is 2 widths of fabric, and it's not super long. It is half a yard. So by the time I trimmed off the edges after I sewed it, it's about 16 inches, but then we're going to add that 10-inch ruffle on there for a nice long skirt. So I did go ahead and already run a double gathering thread along the top of this skirt, and I've sewed it together on the side seam. Okay, so that will just get us a little bit farther on in the project. Now here, oh, then the sleeve, okay, other sleeve is ready to go. Here's what I've done that you're gonna just love and think is so, so cute. Lucy and Phyllis and Debbie, I see you saying hi. I'm so glad you're here. This has been such a fun project to sort of pick away at over the last week, and I'm hoping to make some really good progress this afternoon and see what's happening. So also, oh, I just should mention, I made this sweater. Isn't it so cute? So super soft sweater fabric. This is the women's raglan sweatshirt free pattern. It's so soft for sweater fabric. Then I added on this turtleneck, mock turtleneck, cowl neck, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, using my free tutorial that shows you how to draft your own neck like this, no matter what the size of your neckline is. And then I did some applique of fun felt on the front. And this has been one of my favorite sweaters so far this winter. So anyway, love it. It's so soft and I'm enjoying wearing it today. So I always do love just showing you what I'm wearing. Angela, hi. Yes, you can catch the beginning. We really haven't done much, so you haven't missed a whole lot. The best part of the show is still to come. Okay, and dun, 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 dun. Look at the cute sleeve. Okay, so I worked on one sleeve so that I could make sure it was turning out how I wanted. And look at those fabulous gathers. It is so ruffled. I just love actually how much it's ruffled, how gathered it is, and how it stands up. So this is just those 2 layers of fabric with the top stitching on them. It gives it some nice structure, and I just think that sleeve is absolutely adorable. So I've sewed that up. I realized because I sewed this bottom side seam that now I have to put my sleeves in a circle, which is not my favorite way of putting sleeves in, but I'm going to prove to you today that I actually can do it as I did this one just a little bit ago. We need some elastic in the cuff or the end of the sleeve, but otherwise it is coming together so nicely. And then on the back, of course, I'll either put buttons or snaps depending on how I'm feeling when I get to the end of this project. But again, oh my goodness, those ruffles on the sleeve, I am just loving. So I actually sent my daughter to school today in this same dress pattern with the Christmas dress that I made her last year, which was like a knit fabric but didn't have any stretch. So it was weird. But anyways, she still fits in it. It was pretty long last year, so it's actually great. And she is loving wearing that. So if you want to see that dress, it doesn't have ruffles or frills like I'm adding this time. I'm really trying to enhance what I did before. You can search holiday dress on Life So Savory and you'll see the 2 holiday dresses that I made her last year. The velvet one is super short, like a mini dress. Maybe I should actually just cut off the skirt and make it like a peplum. I'm not sure because she still loves wearing it. And that one I did add some ruffles to and it's really cute. But it is beyond wearing, at least in my opinion. She probably would want to watch it. But anyway, so this fabric is still currently, because I just bought on their yard, in the holiday section at Hobby Lobby. So if you're wondering, this particular fabric, I don't always sew with new fabrics. Often it's from my stash and it's not this season, but this fabric right now is in at least my store still. When I was talking about all those threads that were showing up from gathering, here's what I was talking about. See all those in there? So I had to go and like trim those off, and that's on the underside of the ruffle. So I probably will still trim a little bit more. There's definitely more threads to either pull or trim, but I'm hoping that's avoided by how I serge that edge. Okay. So let's get started sewing. I'm just going to put some things to the side. I think the first thing we're going to do is work on the sleeve because I'm over here at this camera with this sewing machine, and we're just going to run a double stitch along this edge. So the first one I will put right along the edge where the serger is, and then the second one will be a little bit farther into the fabric from there. So I want to do a straight stitch, and I want to set my stitch length as long as it can, which is 5. And then we're going to sew along the edge. And sewing on a 5 stitch length, it actually moves along pretty quickly. Okay, so we're running that gathering stitch. And before when I did it, I just sort of ran it close, a 1/4 inch from the edge of the fabric. But like I said, it just frayed and frayed and frayed and frayed and made a big mess. So let's try and see if we can avoid that mess this time by this edge that I already finished. And we'll see. Okay, so just sewing this fabulous straight stitch. It's not very exciting along here, but I did want to walk you through sewing these gathering stitches because I already sewed the gathering stitches on the top of the skirt. So these will be the only boring gathering stitches that I will sew with you today. Now, because I want these threads to be able to pull and use for gathering, I don't use the automatic thread cutter when I'm doing this. I pull these out and I cut them, okay? So then I have some long tails here to be able to pull and use for gathering. All right, and I'm trying to also, my computer's behind me with the questions, but I'm also trying to, keep an eye on that. Okay, so then I'm sewing the second gathering line close to, but not on top of, nor ever crossing the first gathering line. So we just have to make sure they can be quite close together, but you do not want them to ever touch or cross, because once you do that, it is very, very hard to pull those stitches and gather them up. So just make sure that you're sewing a 1/4 inch, an 1/8 inch, however close you feel like you can sew those lines without them touching or crossing. So sometimes I'll use like this inside edge of my presser foot along the previous stitch as a guide, and sort of use that to make sure, also making sure I'm not sewing too fast, even though I like to be speedy, and help me slow down and know what I'm doing. Okay, so now I have long threads on both sides of this, and we're going to gather this up. So I am going to try and grab both bobbin threads, which on mine right now is black, so it's easy to see. And this one is folded over a little bit. So I'm going to use a pin here to just sort of see if I can pick it out. It's almost like it back stitched, but I don't think I back stitched. I might have to pull the top threads. Maybe it did back stitch. What in the world? Did I do that and not notice what I was doing? Or didn't back stitch on the second one? Oh, I'm trying to pick out the, of course, I'm trying to pick out the top stitching. Of course I back stitched on the top stitching. Okay, so let's look on the other side of the project to where I was sewing the ruffle and pull those bottom threads. Oh my goodness. Okay, so I do like to try and pull both threads at the same time, or even gathers. And if they're short, they won't be short long. So once you get it started, you should be able to keep pulling those pretty easily and then sliding the ruffles down. And you can see how I am running my hand along the edge of this ruffle, and how you can imagine how last time when I had that raw fabric edge, how it ended up getting really messy with a whole bunch of strings, because I ran my hand down it about 50 times and moving those gathers, and it made it really hard to do this. So if you remember, we measured and cut this ruffle twice as long as the top of our sleeve, the shoulder of our sleeve. Myself just commented. Not sure who's commenting on me, maybe my sister. Okay. So we're just moving that down. And what I will do is pull the gathers from both sides. That makes it easier. So moving it down, and it will need to be gathered pretty tightly because of how wide we cut it. So I'm, really trying to pack those gathers in. Okay, so if I've gotten this where I want, I'm going to tie off this one side so that these gathers don't slide off while I go ahead and gather up the other side. So just tie those strings, needle threads to bobbin threads. I've got a serger tail in there. I'm using that to help tie off all of that. Okay. And this is looking so much cleaner on here because I don't have all those loose threads. So I'm thinking the serger was actually a good time on there. Okay. So now I'm grabbing the bobbin threads on the other side of my ruffle. Okay, so I've got those two threads, and I'm going to continue sliding this down. Gathering is a little bit tedious. However, it is so worth it in the end. So we're just going to keep doing it, sliding those gathers to the middle. Pretty soon here, we're going to have to check if this is on, the right length. But I do know from experience doing the other one that it really, I had to gather it a lot. So I'm just going to keep pulling these ruffles in, and we'll check the sleeve in a minute. You can see I'm winding these threads around my finger, and that's just a way to sort of keep it from coming undone as I'm messing with it. Okay, so we've pulled out lots of thread. It's all the way up here. And let's grab the sleeve, which is here. Okay, so I'm trying to, let's see, where can I put this so that you can see it? Maybe I'll lower the presser foot there. Oh, knocking stuff off. I just need more space. Okay, so I'm just gonna measure along the top here if it looks like it is gathered enough. And it looks like we're actually really, really close. So I'm going to pin, you can pin or clip, this to the right side of the fabric, because we want it on top of the shoulder on the right side of the fabric. Okay, so we talked about that the last time, where this fabric doesn't really have a too strong of a right or a wrong side. In fact, I haven't been able to tell it. So on this one in particular, I'm not really caring about the right side or the wrong side of the sleeve. But if your fabric does have a right or a wrong side, make sure that you are pinning this ruffle to that top right side of your sleeve, so that when it's sewn on, it's in the right place. Now I will admit that when I was, so could have gathered, I guess, a tiny bit more, but actually I didn't tie these off, so you can still pull them. When I was sewing the side seam of this morning, I sewed it up like 3 times trying to figure out which was the right side and the wrong side. So hopefully I have that figured out. Oh my goodness, another super cute ruffle on the top of the sleeve. I just think that looks so adorable and is gonna make such a big difference in making this dress look dressier or fancier than just a plain sleeve version. Okay, so now I'm going to use this machine to baste the ruffle to the sleeve, so that when we're sewing it into the dress, we don't have to worry about all the layers. Okay, so I've turned it back from the gathering stitch, so it's not such a long stitch anymore. I would 100% recommend finishing the edge of this ruffle before you ruffle it, because even when I was doing this step last time, it was so much harder to see where I was sewing because of all those loose frayed threads. And now with that serger thread finishing the top edge, it is just way, way easier. So good recommendation if you're doing these gathers where you really had to manipulate the fabric, you don't want that fabric to fray. Okay. And like I said, there's a lot of ruffles here, so sometimes you have to help your machine over the bumps, over the ruffles, over the gathers, all of those things. Back stitch, so it holds it in place. And here is the cute shoulder with the ruffle, and we're ready to put it into the sleeve. So I'm going to switch over the camera to the serger because we're going to do some sewing there. And remember, I don't know exactly why it does this, but my other camera just takes a moment to click on. So it's going to go black. Don't worry, I'm here. It's just an older camera, and so apparently it takes a minute to wake up, but there we go. Okay, so let's take a look at sewing up the rest of this sleeve, moving all of this fabric over to the side. And what we'll do now is we're gonna go ahead and sew the sleeve in, and then we're gonna use this really cool piece, which is the ruffler, to put the bottom ruffle onto the dress. And is just so fun. Okay, so now remember, this is the right side of my dress. This is the right side right here. So if I'm sewing this right sides together to sew down the bottom of the sleeve, I really do want to tuck this ruffle inside and sew down. And for some reason, I just had such a hard time envisioning this when I sewed that first sleeve. So I had to like rip it out multiple times. All right, so you do want to make sure that the bottom of the gathers, if you have those extra bumps and ruffles, are pulled out of the way. But I do want to sew the edges of the ruffles into my sleeve, into my seam. So I'm making sure they're in there, trying to make sure they're as flat as possible. There's a lot of fabric that it is trying to sew here. So hopefully we can make it out of this alive. Uh-oh, see that it's caught on there. All right, I might have to go back and reinforce that with the sewing machine because that really felt like a big bump. And sometimes the serger doesn't do a super great job sewing over a big bump like that. So I know, Arnell, I just went right over those ruffles and bumps. And that's, again, love this serger. It just goes over everything. I can't complain. I didn't even break a needle. Sometimes I expect to do that. Okay, I've lost my little scissors here. Okay, so here you can see, yeah, we're gonna just, well, let me look on the inside and see. It's actually not bad, that being the right side. I can see a little bit of that white thread in there. I don't know if you can see it. There is a little bit of the white. So I probably will reinforce that with the other machine that has the colored thread on it. But let's turn it right side out. And look at this super cute sleeve we have going. I mean, this is a lot. I will tell you, it's a lot to hold on to. It's a lot to work with, but the results are just so cute. So I'm going to keep going. All right. So here's our top. We have this one sleeve already set in, and now I'm going to go ahead and set in the other sleeve. So grab this, and I should have marked the top first, but I didn't. Okay, so the bottom is where the seam is. The top is the direct other half of that. And we're gonna go ahead and pin or clip this in place. And again, this is a lot of fabric. It's 2 layers of the bodice, the bodice and the lining. And it is how many layers of gathers? So many. But I did the other one on the serger, and I'm really going to hope that this one is too. So now you can see this white gathering thread. I am going to want to make sure that I trim that off and that cannot be seen when we're finished with this side. So I'm just trying to pull that layer up a little bit higher as I'm pinning this on there. Okay, and again, I'm trying to check behind me a couple times just to see if there's any comments that I'm missing. Now my computer is completely behind me. Okay, but you can see how you can see that white. That's okay. We're gonna try and cut that off. I'll probably need a new blade after this project because woo, this is a lot to cut through. It's like 1/4 inch thick here with all this fabric. Okay, good thing there is a seam allowance built in. So there is the, I want to make sure that it's laying flat so that, you know, we've all done that, like serged over something, and then when you're done, it's actually a big mess. So I don't want to do that. I want it to lay flat. I guess I was checking the outside, but not the inside. Oh, which side do I sew? I kind of want to sew on this side so that I can see and make sure I'm cutting off those white ruffles, but I am going to just have to make sure that this fabric on the inside is laying nice and flat. And I actually see that there's a little bit of a pucker here in the sleeve that is basted in. So I'm going to just cut that open, and I don't need to rebaste it because again, that's just a basting stitch, but that will allow that to drop back down. And I'm going to be so much happier that I caught that and that isn't going to be a big mess in our finished product. Okay. So there's the pins all set in, or the clips all set in place. You can start sewing wherever you want on this project. I'm going to start where it's kind of easiest to get in. And again, we are attaching this to the dress, cutting through those ruffles and hopefully attaching it smoothly to the seam. So, you know, there is always the danger when you do it with the serger that you cut something you shouldn't. So that's why I'm actually lifting this up, checking the underneath, and sewing just a couple inches at a time. If it's having trouble getting started because it's so thick, that's why I sometimes lift those needles and then it gets more, I like to call it oomph as it goes down there and hits that. Okay, we just broke a needle. Not super surprising, right? Who's surprised? Not me. That's a lot of fabric I'm trying to sew. So let me grab some needles here. And put a new one in. Hopefully it threads easily and we can move on with this. If not, we'll just tack it on with the sewing machine and abandon this. So I'm going to, let's see, I see that little needle there. See if I can chain this off. Okay, see, then now I can pull this off, pull the presser foot, and pull this out so we can work in here. Here is the broken bit of the needle, okay, which is always good because if you can't find that, then I'm like worried. Okay, so now I've got a new needle, and then on my serger, I'm just gonna go ahead and loosen the broken one, remove it, and put in the new one. And then of course we will have to test this, but hopefully because it's a needle and not a looper, this will be an easy rethread. Knock on wood. All right, so now let's rethread this. Through here. Okay, and I'm going to check in here. The chain stitch is forming nicely on the feed dogs. Where's a scrap of fabric I can sew on? This is like the little edge that I cut off my skirt when I was squaring it up, but that will at least give me an idea. Not very thick, but at least I know that it's sewing and hopefully is in good shape. Okay, so we are well, I guess we're about halfway around. Shoot, I was hoping we were closer. So you can see it actually broke a needle when I was going over that seam of the underarm, which is a super thick part. So I'm gonna start a little bit past that. So that, and I'll just go back and sew that again on the sewing machine. Oh no! You guys, I did the whole other sleeve without this. But I think at this point, I'm just gonna go over. This doesn't even wanna chain it off. Oh, there it goes. I'm just going to go over and sew it on the sewing machine so that we can finish this. Here's the needle, broken needle part. Good. Okay. But I want to be able to use this to do the ruffler, and I really don't want to mess up the serger more than maybe I already am. So let me switch over to the other camera. You guys really get to see me live and in person because sometimes I make a whole bunch of mistakes. I don't know if it's me. I'm just trying to do more than my machine can do, huh? Okay, so we're gonna hope that this regular sewing machine will play nice here and do this. And yeah, finish stitching this together so that at least I can show you how it looks, and then we'll go from there. Okay. So I probably should put like my denim needle back in here. Oh, I guess I'm gonna go a zigzag to catch the raw edges of the fabric. I am going to have to, well, I need a zigzag anyway to finish this, so I'm not sure if I will cut the seam allowance and then re-sew it. At this point, I'm just trying to tack it together so that you can see how cute it looks, but I will have to figure out the finishing because this is gonna be a big wad of fabric in here with how this is going. Speaking of big wads of fabric, what is it going on? Oh, my needle's bent. Ah! You guys, how did I sew on the other one without all these disasters? Okay, I'm gonna grab, yes, Patty, oh my goodness, real life is right. Let's grab a, something really, I don't know if I should use a universal needle or, well, we'll try. Or really, should I use a denim needle? I'm not sure. Okay, saving all those needles to dispose of. I usually have like a little canister that we keep those in. It says the upper thread may not be threaded correctly, so I guess I'm rethreading the whole upper needle. I wanted to get so much farther on this with you guys, so we'll see. Hopefully our ruffles are just so smooth, and this is the only hiccup of the day, right? It is a live show, Debbie. Oh my goodness. A stressful one. You know, I start to like sweat sometimes when I'm doing this for you guys, and too real. I would be happy sometimes to not have these issues. Okay, so there is that part. I do need to just sew a little bit more down here along that underarm. So I guess those ruffles look awesome, but apparently it's harder on my machine than I thought, because I had such good luck with the first one. I was like probably getting a little too overconfident with how it was going to go. Oh my goodness. I just thought I almost sewed it on upside down. I would be quitting for the day if I sewed the sleeve on upside down. Okay, so here's the second one. Oh my goodness. How adorable is that? Could that really be any cuter? Nope, I don't think so. It's so cute. So cute. So, okay, there's the bodice. It is pretty finished for us. And now it is time to go back over to the serger, rethread that second needle, and show you the ruffler, which hopefully will be successful. Oh, Lucy, inside it's like sweaty and my heart is beating fast. I have a smartwatch, and sometimes during these moments like this, it will tell me, it's actually not today, but sometimes it will tell me, your stress level seems really high. Please try to calm down. So then I know, okay, yep, I'm a little stressed, and actually not stressed. I mean, obviously, what's going to happen here? Nothing. It's just not going to turn out. But there's something about knowing that people are watching what you're doing that is a little stressful. So I am going to put in a second new needle. Now we just have new needles galore in here. Make sure they're both nice and tight. Thread up that second one. Sometimes I have to open this door because it is really in my way here. and do a test again to make sure that, you know, the needles are honestly the easiest thing on a surgery place. Okay, so let's talk gathering foot. So this is really fun. I will say, I tried this with some really slippery knit fabric and it did not work because the fabric just kept sliding out of this gathering foot, okay? So, but I think I did do a test on this one, and I think because it's not slippery or slidey, that it actually is gonna work really great. So on the bottom, this is the part that's gonna feed. I wanna make sure I've got right sides together because I do have this seam here. So right sides will be up, okay? And so I'm gonna slide that part under. The ruffle goes on the bottom because that's where the feed dogs are gonna feed the fabric through double. So you wanna do the same as if you're ruffling on the serger, and that is to turn this to 2, the differential feed, and then the stitch length, I'm also gonna turn up to 4, which will make it go a little faster. And then the other thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna tighten the needle to 5, just to give it some extra gathers, because I think it's supposed to be about 2 to 1, meaning whatever the skirt is, which is this second piece of fabric I have here, the ruffle should be double that. So my skirt, like I said, is 2 widths of fabric, 2 widths of fabric. The ruffle is 4 widths of fabric, okay? So, Patty, I'm not doing a new serger class. My other serger class just really still applies to all these things. But apparently I'm, yes, doing a serger troubleshooting class live with you guys today. Okay, so we have our ruffle on the bottom. We have this, making sure that both are right sides together, because this is going to ruffle and sew. So we're not doing any separate steps. So let's hope. So this is not in a circle. It's still flat and open. We'll sew the side seam when it's finished. And that's so we can account for if the ruffle is a little bit longer or we need to adjust for the skirt, right? Because I'm not 100% sure how it's going to end up. So I just want to make sure that both these raw edges of fabric stay along this edge. And this one I don't want to come out. I can feel the ruffle, which is the bottom one, being fed much quicker through the feed dogs. So you can see, like, my hand on this one starts way back here and it like catches up, right? So that's because it's gathering. I can't quite show you the gathers yet, but I will get there, okay? So it's gathering up that bottom layer. It is sewing the 2 layers together. I don't know if I needed to cut such a long ruffle, really the 4 times, but I did just want to make sure that if it gathered it or ruffled it that much, that I had enough fabric. So I don't think it's quite 2 to 1 because I am almost to the halfway around on the skirt. And we haven't used up 2 panels on the ruffle yet. Well, so, okay, a little bit off. So here's 2 panels on the ruffle. Here's half on the skirt. So not quite 2 to 1, but definitely does not hurt to have that extra fabric prepared. We'll see how much it uses when we finish. And I also love that with this fabric that frays really easily, this is also going to be a finished edge. I'm not going to have to go back and finish this. Okay, so now we have enough that I can go back and show you. Look at it. It's ruffling it and sewing it on all in one go. How cute is that? Cute, cute, cute. Okay, so that is what we're doing all in one step. Sewing this skirt. can't really pin this ahead of time because it's feeding it through at different speeds. So that's why I'm stopping every several inches to rearrange because of how it's going together. Okay, looks like you guys are hanging in there. So I needed into the fourth panel of the ruffle, but I did not need the full fourth panel of the ruffle. So I'll just go ahead and trim that off. Have a tiny bit extra fabric. So all the way off and cut it. Now, before I forget, I'm going to put my serger settings back to normal so that next time I go and sew, they are not off. And then open up and I can see how cute that ruffle looks on the skirt. My goodness, so fun. Okay, so while I'm over here, we're going to sew this. No, I'm not going to sew the skirt into a circle because I need to gather it first, I think, because otherwise I will sew over my gathers. So let me just switch back for a moment, and I think it's easier for me to gather over here. Okay, a little more space. All right, so here is the skirt with the ruffle. It is adorable. You guys see that? So cute. This fabric, I think, just makes everything cute, right? It's not cute, but it looks cute because it's made with this cute fabric. Oh, okay. So I have a little bit of the extra ruffle here. Okay, you can see that. So I'm going to go ahead and cut. This is a nice fabric with squares, so I can keep it squared up. So not a lot of extra on the ruffle considering how much I cut, actually. A little bit extra. And so what we need to do now is, like I said, I already ran the gathering threads across the top of the skirt, but I'm going to go ahead and pull those to gather it to be the same as the top of the bottom of the top. And I did not finish the top of the skirt edge, so my guess is you're going to see some of those nice threads start to come out like we did on the ruffle. Thankfully, I will not have to be gathering this as tightly as I did those ruffles on the sleeve, so I will try not to make such a big mess, but it just really does start to pull that out. Okay, so I will gather half about from this side and then turn it over and do half from the other side. So just pull several inches each time. And then I will measure this here in a moment. But it's gonna be so cute. Gathered at the top, gathered at the ruffle. Can you see over here? I have a little, where I first started the ruffle is a little bit of a hole. So I will need to sew that up. But that doesn't affect what I'm doing right now. As I was getting started on the serger, I guess I need to be more careful. All right, so I'm gonna tie off this side of the ruffle, or the top. I have been tempted in the past to cut these threads because they're annoying and they're long, but just in case your knot breaks and the fabric starts flowing down the threads, you will be glad if you leave these long because then you don't have to resew. You just have to regather. So there's a little tip from someone who makes mistakes. All right, let's grab the bobbin threads on this other side and pull through. I'm going to have to clip the top into a circle because right now with the placket on the back, it's still open. It's not completely into a circle. So I will want to do that before I measure this. I will say, just a plug right here while I've got you guys, if you want to give the gift of my Serger class for a Christmas present, I do offer gift certificates. So you can purchase the class, gift it to someone you know, and I will work out all those details of getting your payment registered to your friend. So if you are interested, I do offer gift certificates for the Serger class. So you can just go to lifesosavory.com, go to the shop, and check out the gift certificate section in the shop. So I'm going to put a clip at the top and the bottom of the back, and actually one pin in the middle to just help this to lay really nicely. Okay, so here's the back of the bodice, and you can see that I've clipped it and pinned it, so it's all going to stay in place while I measure and sew on the skirt. So now I have the bottom of the top, and I can use that to estimate if my skirt is gathered correctly, and I can see that it is actually still too big. Okay, so I need to gather a little bit more, which is fine. I still have these to pull. Let me measure again. And once we have this, I will sew the skirt into a circle before attaching it. Oh, actually that looks good. So now I'm going to tie off this side of the skirt as well. And then we have to sew the skirt into a circle before we can attach it. So I think I will, I'm going to sew, do I sew into a circle before I perfect these gathers? No, I'm kind of afraid I will break the gathering stitches. Okay, we're just going to smooth out some of these gathers here. This is why that ruffler foot is so awesome, because you don't have to adjust the gathers. They literally are perfect. Perfect. Just hot off the press. You don't need to move them around with your fingers. All right, so let's go back over the serger, sew this up, and then serge the two together. Can I sew all these layers with the more gathers? And then you'll get to see at least, I mean, I have the cuffs to do, I have the hem to do, I have the buttons to do, but those are just finishing details, and you'll really be able to see the look of this dress after I put those two together. So let's do that, and then I will call it good for today's live show. But again, okay, just gonna be black for just a minute while this other camera turns on. And we're going to sew this right sides together down the side seam. And I'm actually going to not try to cut fabric at the top. Why? Because I don't want to cut these gathering threads. I want this to stay perfectly gathered until we get it attached to the skirt. So I'll start cutting a little bit when I get down, but at least right here at the top, I'm just going to catch the very edge, and this will be in our next seam. So I'm not worried that I didn't catch enough, because that will be included in the waist seam. So that's not a big deal. Okay, so we're sewing down the side of the skirt, sewing the two layers together. Thankfully, my serger is still sewing along nicely, even after those needle issues. Okay, here's that hole that I showed you a little bit that I need to fix, but we're gonna go here and sew down. Now we're at where we've joined the ruffle. Trying to keep some of this fabric is like folded over. Sew down the edge of the ruffle as well to that finished serger edge bottom. And then I will have to turn under and hem the bottom of the dress. But we'll do that later. All right, so now with right sides together, we are going to match up the skirt and the bodice. And so the right side is on the inside here. And I have sort of these side seams marked. So we will use that as a guide. The right side of my dress is also here. And it shouldn't really matter front and back of the skirt because we didn't put in pockets, although I probably should have now that I think about it. Rose would have loved pockets, but too bad, so sad trying to get this sewn up. So I'm gonna trim this. All right, so now I'll just go around and use pins or clips. I'm using clips because I love them to attach the skirt to the bodice. And where we folded over that placket in the back, you're just pinning or clipping that in place with the overlap. Okay, so I just am trying to underneath make sure that the ruffles and the sleeves and all those things are out of the way. Putting in plenty of clips here, marking my way around this dress. I think it's going to be really cute, but honestly, all this fraying fabric reminds me why I don't particularly love woven fabrics. I really do love knit because you don't have this fraying, you don't have just a lot of things that I feel like are trickier with woven fabric. I can avoid when I use knit fabric. So, you know, definitely have my favorites. All right, so I'm going to come in here and sew. I'm going to take a healthy seam allowance, probably closer to a 1/2 inch, so that I can sew up those ruffles and hide the gathering stitches and attach it to the dress. If you can still see some of your gathering threads when you're done, it is easy to go back and pull those out with a seam ripper. But if I don't have to, then I won't. I'm also making sure that I haven't caught any extra bodice that I don't want to, right? I want that to be laying nice and flat inside the dress. And I like to sew with the ruffles facing up like I currently am, so that I can really make sure they're facing downward and laying flat, and I'm also not catching the ruffles weird. I, for a long time, really loved just running a single gathering stitch, and I just did the single gathering stitch so many times. Wait a second. Let me just take this off for a second. I'm at the placket, and I've caught something I shouldn't. So let's just go back and check this. It felt weird here. So I don't think I've cut anything, but I am gonna rip this out here and put some clips back in, because I have, you can see here, picked up some extra. I folded the bodice over, which was exactly what I was just saying I didn't want to do, but thankfully it didn't cut it, because then I really would have been in trouble if it had cut this. So this is folded up in there. Just a little bit more to go. It did not slice it with the knife, so I am lucky today, because I have. And any of you who have probably sewn with a serger before have cut something that you shouldn't have. Okay, it's sadness. Oh my goodness, look how much was tucked up in there. so much. That would have been really, really terrible. Okay, so let's just re-sew over that area again. Now when I come to the placket, hopefully we just zip over it because we also aren't sewing that extra fabric that I didn't want to. Trimming off all the frayed fabric. Here's my long gathering tail there. Whew. And we have a complete circle. Okay, so I think I will switch it back to the other camera. It's just farther away and easier for me to hopefully show you the complete dress. Okay, you guys are so awesome for hanging in there. Let's see what we've got. Okay, so let me turn this here. Can I step over this cord here and show you the full reveal of this dress? There's a lot of fabric in here. There's a lot of fabric in here, but it is so cute. Oh my goodness. Let me raise it up a little bit here. Okay. Look at this. Gorgeous, huh? It is so cute. You can see there's that hole of the ruffle. I keep seeing it, but I'm gonna go fix that. So, and then I'm gonna hem the bottom. We're gonna add a casing and elastic here in the sleeves. And then I'm also on the back going to try to sew buttons. I don't mind buttonholes too much, and I really only need a couple. Just to psych myself up a little bit. So I'm gonna go ahead and try to finish that today, and then we can do a fun social post about this. I do see that there's a little bit of gathering stitches that I can see in the waistline, so I will need to cut some of this fluff out, plus just get my seam ripper out and cut a little bit of that out. But there you go. Okay, so I'm gonna link today's show to last week's show, part 1 and part 2, so that you can see the full making of this. And yeah, I had so much fun. So it's turned out mostly like I envisioned in my head, but I do love probably the shoulder ruffles more than anything. I think they are such a cute addition. So anyway, you should try some shoulder ruffles. Despite all my broken needles and issues, you can do it. It's awesome. Just go slow, have fun, enjoy, and I think Rose is going to love this dress. So she'll get to go to a Christmas concert in it next week, plus hopefully wear it another couple times. And I had fun making it. So I will see you next week for another sewing tutorial. I'm sure we'll do something Christmassy, and because it'll probably be my last one until after the holidays. So thank you for joining me. I will see you next time. Have a great rest of your week. Bye.